Hey guys, welcome to another Hangout on Air. Let me tweet this link out. I'm doing this YouTube Live again on my computer instead of the phone. Just hoping the quality is a little bit better. On air, there's going to be an echo. The quality of this camera is like 1080p. Front-facing camera on an iPhone is 720p. I think. So the quality of these should be better, the one that goes through this camera. Let me still tweet this thing. How's everybody doing? I'm on. All right, I think I'm on the live chat better on my computer. Let me just tweet this out. Going live on YouTube. All right. What's up, Ben? How's the weekend going? Jim, what's up? How's everybody doing? What'd you guys do this weekend? How's your Saturday so far? What did we do? So far, we had like a 1-year-old birthday party, just a small event. That was kind of fun, but really kind of took up the morning. Kid was supposed to take a nap. She didn't nap, hence why I didn't get any editing done, and I'm doing this YouTube Live. What else? What else did we do? Just walked the dog, went out to dinner. Dinner was okay. What do we got? Jim, prepping to list my house for sale, lots of work. Dude, I can only imagine. I hate moving. It's like, and I hate all house stuff. Good luck. I know it's like I forget, like, you know, it's one of those top 3. It's like birth, you know, like having a baby, a death, and like moving or something like that, or like the top 3 most stressful moments to humans. And it makes me nuts. My skin crawls whenever I have to do any kind of house stuff like that. So good luck. Colin, you're at a lame TechCrunch party at August Cap. Interesting. I'm sorry, it's lame. And Ben is working on creating a course. Loads of work, but really rewarding. It's awesome. Yeah, right? I mean, any kind of form of generating teaching stuff, it's crazy. It does take a lot of work, like doing these videos. But then afterward, I'm so proud that I did it. Jim took a director of engineering job at a small software company a couple months ago. Stress layered on stress. Yeah, I'm sure, man. Similar, yeah. I mean, I sort of know a little bit maybe what you're going through. Like, yeah, like I took this job on at High Rise the same, it was like 3 months after my daughter was born. My wife, like, I think it was like the week my wife was going back to work. So like, you know, it's like, it was crazy, right? Like new daycare, you know, still barely getting any sleep, and now working on High Rise. Anyway, I get it. Yeah. Anyway, so guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another YouTube Live. I hope you are having an awesome weekend. So who asked this? I mean, this is a common question. Like here, someone asked it though specifically recently. Said Sayedi. I know I'm butchering your last name, but I will, here's your Twitter account. There he is on Twitter. I apologize, I know I'm not pronouncing your name right, but you asked a really great question. You asked, would love to know your opinion about bootstrapping versus VC funding a startup, maybe a good idea for your next vlog. Yeah, it is. So here's my opinions on it, and they're somewhat nuanced, and as these types of decisions are, I really feel there's probably no one right decision. You could do either, and you might still succeed doing either, or you could do both, and you'd still fail. But here are some of the nuance in my life about it, and just some kind of personal history. So I've never raised a huge round of money, but I have raised seed rounds through things like Y Combinator. I have done fundraising, but I have also chosen not to go in with some investors that were interested in investing in me. So I've seen a bunch of it, but I've never executed, say, like a Series A. So I've never, accomplished like the next big step after a medium amount of money, obtained from like a Y Combinator kind of program. But here's still kind of the things that I've seen. So I've done Y Combinator twice. Once in 2006. That first time with Inkling at inklingmarkets.com, they gave us about like $17,000, $18,000, and I believe it was like for 7% of our business. That's a huge chunk of the business, but a small amount of money. I mean, that is the type of money we could have easily just saved. The three of us, there were 3 partners who had really good paying jobs. We could have easily just kind of pulled this money together ourselves. So doing Y Combinator at that moment wasn't about funding. It wasn't about, I need a lot of money to hire people. We were still very much like going to do this ourselves, but we felt we didn't know enough. We felt like we needed the connections and the education from something like Y Combinator. And it turned out great. I mean, we got our first client through Y Combinator. We got press and relationships from Y Combinator that even paid off later on for projects. And so I don't regret the decision at all. It is giving up a big chunk of change for it, but it was a really nice boost to kind of encourage us to jump in. But it was still felt very much like we were bootstrapping. So I don't know, the lesson that you might take from something like this is, bootstrap. Unless you really feel you need this education, but then you're staring at the odds of getting into something as interesting as Y Combinator have gotten worse and worse and worse. As the years have gone on, it's become so competitive, and there's so many people applying. But I still think it's a really great program to look into. And there's others that are also kind of interesting to me. Things like Techstars. There's things in the nonprofit area. So these seed stage funding opportunities are really interesting to me. There's a lot of their terms are usually pretty satisfactory. It's like they're not really aggressive about you needing to raise the next round. Some are, some aren't. I mean, Y Combinator, especially with Inkling, it was like they gave you a little bit of money. They kind of encouraged you to talk to investors and think about raising. But at the end of the day, they weren't like they weren't like watching over your shoulder or calling you constantly like, Nate, why aren't you raising $1 million? You've got to do this, or we're going to fire you and bring in new executives. Y Combinator is not like that at all. So it's like this really nice hybrid to taking some money, getting some outside help, and still kind of bootstrapping. When we did Y Combinator again in 2011, it wasn't that different. It was still a little bit of money, about 7% of the company, a little bit less I think then for that one. But then there was like this follow-on round of more money. I think it was like 150,000, maybe a little less. So there's more money, and the more money I think brought more problems. The more money I don't think brought with it more expertise. I think instead it actually brought the worst out of us. Like we started focusing on the business to be this like enormous thing that, like little ideas that could get little business and become something even profitable weren't good enough. Like it had to be something now that was going to pay back $150,000 and I think much bigger. So I think there's a lot of risk when you start taking on higher and higher levels of money. So bottom line, I'm not a huge fan of raising money at first. I think there are businesses that obviously need to raise money. If you're looking at something like building automated cars or needing a ton of infrastructure that you can't bootstrap, clearly you need to raise money. But I think most of us, in most situations, we need to start bootstrapping, even if we intend to raise money later. I mean, I look at like, how does Highrise look now? Cupid asked, bootstrap or cash flow positive? We've been cash flow positive since like Highrise launched in like 2007. I mean, it's tough, right? Because Highrise was part of Basecamp, but Basecamp has been profitable like from day one. They were like this profitable consulting company that created a software project. And they were like bringing in, they didn't stop doing consulting until Basecamp was profitable. So they've always been profitable. So when they made Highrise, it was immediately profitable. There was not a lot of expense running it. There's only maybe 3 people who had built it. alongside keeping Basecamp running. So High-Rise right now is still all cash. There's no need. We have plenty of cash to do the things that we want. Though I run it like we're maybe more bootstrapped. So, and in some ways, again, this is really nuanced. Like I'm all over the place right now. I'm gonna go back a little bit more, but High-Rise is this weird animal where we have a lot of money that we could work with, but I'm very careful with it. And I'm careful with it because of the experience I've gotten just being bootstrapped with things like Inkling. I mean, we ran Inkling for, how long did I run that thing? For like 5 years, and we were always very tight with our money because besides that $18,000, that's all we took. We did talk with other investors maybe like a year or two later, and when we talked to these investors, I really didn't get the impression that they were going to give us much of any benefit besides just money. And that's it. And it was like, well, we don't want to give so much of the business away just to get, I mean, I think a lot the derogatory term is like dumb money. I mean, it's just, they'll give you money. They did have stipulations. I was like, we wanted us to move to Silicon Valley and we lived in Chicago. So not only dumb money, but it was like they want us to change so much about our business in terms of our livelihood. And I don't think they were going to really offer us that much in terms of expertise and ways of doing things that we weren't already doing. And so I really think bootstrapping allows you to stretch, and stretching allows you, and it flexes a muscle in your brain to be more creative with your dollars. And until you feel you can be creative with your dollars, you should not be bringing in and trying to raise a lot of money. So you still, I always think people need to be and starting things while they're, you know, doing some moonlighting, and if you maybe raise a small tiny amount of money with your partners together, you know, pool some money together with a couple people. But I don't think you should raise a large amount of money until you know you can be effective with just a tiny bit of money. And there's a really great book I read recently just called Stretch, and it's largely about we aren't good enough about stretching things, and we become really dumb when we don't stretch. We become really dumb when we can just get like loads of money. We don't spend it wisely. We don't do creative things. And you see that over and over and over again. Company raises $1 million, and I don't think they've had the bootstrapping experience to know how to spend that wisely. So I don't know. I run High-Rise very much like I did it running Inkling. Like we're really careful spending money, probably maybe too careful. I think some people might advise us to spend more money on some projects. But again, like I'm really careful. I want to see that a little experiment is going to go a long way, and then we can put more fuel in it. And that's how I feel about bootstrapping. Prove to yourself that you can turn this into a profitable business. If it's something that you recognize, like, you know what, we have to raise money so that we can grow a lot bigger than our cash flow can make, or else like the world is going to steal our idea, or fine. But there's very few and rare cases of this. People watching this, you're probably not it. And so like a lot of these companies, I just read another company that they were just valued at $100 million. This is like their Series A. I know they've raised before. I mean, these numbers are crazy. The A, B, C, nothing even makes any sense anymore. There's like seed and pre-A and whatever, it doesn't even matter. But I've seen this one company just raised another $25 million on a $100 million valuation. I know they've raised before. So just now they gave away about 25% of their business above all this other percentage of their business that they've given away before. It's crazy how much ownership you're giving away. A lot of us are starting businesses so that we can be, you know, like the creators of our own destiny, right? We can manage our own destiny. By giving all this business away, you're just bringing on new bosses. You know, there's gonna be board meetings with more and more people in them who wanna know how they're gonna get their money back, and they're gonna wanna see it multiplied by a lot, or else they would have put it in something else that would have multiplied it by a lot. And in a lot of cases, these bosses are not better than the bosses that you're trying to escape from at the job you already have. So if your intention is just raising a lot of money and getting some new bosses, I don't know, stick with your job and keep the bosses you have. Because I think a lot of us like realize there's another thing about regret. Like I've met a lot of companies that have raised money up until the point they've even had IPOs. And then I obviously know a ton of people who've bootstrapped. I don't find, I don't even know if I can tell you a single story of someone who has regretted bootstrapping. I mean, I'm sure there exists. I'm sure you could probably link this up right now in the comments, like, but I don't know any. I don't know anyone who has said, you know what, we bootstrapped and that was a bad idea because, you know, someone went off with our idea and they just killed it. And you know, we were bootstrapping, we were profitable, and we really should have put a lot more gasoline on the fire. I'm sure you can find it, but it's rare. I mean, the person who probably says that is still someone who wasn't even profitable bootstrapping, or they couldn't figure out how to get like a single customer to pay them. Yet the reverse happens to me over and over and over again. It's like they raise a bunch of money and now they're out as CEO. They raise a bunch of money and now they've got a bunch of bosses. They have, I know multiple people who have IPO'd and they have just so regretted it. They hate their lives. They look so miserable compared to what they look like when they were just like bootstrapping and getting this business off the ground. There's a lot of reasons why, but the pressure of taking this money on and having to repay it to your investors is insane. Yeah, and again, like I've even just raised a little bit of money, even the second round of Y Combinator, that $150,000, it brings on a new level of stress that I don't think is that conducive to running a business. So I don't recommend anyone do it unless you really feel confident you've got a profitable thing on your hand, and putting the gasoline on is just gonna make your thing explode. So yeah, I mean, those are some of the big things. Yeah, like Cubit brings up the taco stand story last week. I was at the beach. We go to this beach nearby, and there's this little restaurant there. And I was talking to the people who work there. They make these delicious tacos, but the taco stand's terrible. I mean, there's no seats. You know, you take it to the beach, and the sand blows, and you get the sand in your mouth. It's not an ideal location to have a restaurant. I know most people in this situation would have looked at it and been like, you know what? We need to raise $1 million and open up a restaurant. Taco stand on the beach? That sucks. What a terrible place to open up a business. But this guy's like, nah, I'm not gonna spend all this money, other people's money. I'm not gonna get into a huge business that I don't even know if I wanna run or know how to operate. Let me just start small. So he starts small with this little taco stand. And he, like I said in the video, like he got enough signal to know he's making really great food. He knows he likes doing this thing. And now he's got like the evidence, like, personally, he's got the evidence he can show investors to get much better terms than he probably would have if he was a nobody trying to raise money. To be like, look, I can pull off a profitable little taco stand on the beach. I can do a bigger restaurant. But why do we keep leaping into these crazy things when just start here? Just make a little bit of profit with the resources you have at hand and get creative. So I don't know, bootstrap. There's very few people who can tell me a case that they need to raise a lot of money. You know, even if you do, I bet there's something you can do today in your house with the stuff you have around, with duct tape and cardboard boxes, that at least prove to you that you have an idea on your hand. If you don't, move on to the next idea. And you'll get better terms from investors if you do end up realizing you need to raise money, but stop talking about raising money. It's also this huge distraction. So many people go out and raise money, and then you can't build your business anymore. You can't talk to customers. All you have time for is talking to investors. And I've spent so much time talking to investors, and then you end up just talking to this dumb money. And you end up realizing through the course of this, like, man, I just wish I had spent those 3 months or 6 months or whatever just trying to get money from customers, and it would have been a much better use of your 6 months. One last thing I'll say is there's so many businesses that I know. If you go down the list of companies that, a really great example is, I didn't even finish what I'm gonna tell you, and I've already jumped ahead of the story. One of my favorite examples of a company that raised some money and then ended up failing was a company, I believe they were called, I'm gonna kill it now, was it Greplin? They were a YC company. Their original idea for the YC project died. They didn't complete it. But like a day before demo day, where you like demo your project and try to get investor money, he came up with this idea. I don't remember the founder's name, but he came up with this really cool idea to, like, basically it was like a desktop search of apps, of other things that weren't like, you know, Google couldn't search it. It was supposed to, I think, kind of be just a search that kind of went out into like a bunch of your other apps that you have, that you usually use, a lot of SaaS apps, and basically give you a search box. I mean, because we all have this. Like, I've got Slack accounts, Basecamp accounts, Highrise accounts, and it would be nice to have a universal search into all this. And he built it, and he raised a bunch of money, and this company no longer exists. They turned into something called Q, I think, CUE, and it like became like this like meeting event scheduler. But he had this like really awesome thing that I know a lot of users loved using. But I have a feeling that he raised enough money that his investors were hounding him that he had to become this billion-dollar business. And they didn't see it in that search product that he had. But I bet that search product would have turned into a very profitable, very interesting small business. I hate that term lifestyle company because I don't even know what the heck it means. I'm sure it probably could have made him a lot of money, but maybe it wouldn't have been a billion-dollar operation. Who knows? But if he hadn't raised that money, he probably could have found enough customers to keep bootstrapping the thing, and we'd probably have it today. And maybe it's not fair to pick on that project, but you see that a lot. I go down the list of companies that are like exiting because they didn't get their Series A or their Series B, and there's so many promising ideas that are just dead because the investors didn't want to follow through. They didn't see the promise of them becoming a billion-dollar idea. But could they have been a $2 million idea? What's wrong with that? Nothing for the founders. So I don't know. Be careful. Be careful raising a lot of money. I'm still very pro Y Combinator, but there's a lot of people that go through Y Combinator that shouldn't go on any further. Do Y Combinator. There's no pressure to raise a lot of money after that. And I think a lot of people feel like because they're doing Y Combinator, they have to raise a lot of money afterward, and it's wrong. And I don't think Paul Graham is really pushing that. I don't know where that comes from. I mean, I know it's part of the education, but it's not necessary. And so there's that. What else? Anybody else got anything? How did 37 Signals make Bezos give them a bit of money? I don't know. I mean, that Basecamp story in 37. I know David just on Medium so is it Andre or Andre? I know I'm killing your first name. But Andre's asking, how did 37 Signals make Bezos give them a bit of money? So again, like that, I wasn't ever here at Basecamp, but there's a really DHH on Signal versus Noise talks about this. He talks about this, and basically the history of 37 Signals is, I mean, they created Basecamp, and eventually, they were kind of putting off. They weren't putting off. They didn't want any VC money, but Bezos came along with this really sweet deal of equity for cash, but it was never like they weren't ever going to. They didn't have to kind of take him on as a boss, and he wasn't going to push for exits or other funding. And again, go to Medium, go to Signal versus Noise to see that story, because I can't tell it like David can tell it, because it's not my story. And I don't really know how 37 Signals got this really sweet deal, except for the fact they were like doing what they do, and Bezos was probably paying a lot of attention to, I mean, the guys, Bezos kind of invests in a way. Right, yeah, check it out on SVN. It's a really neat story. But I mean, it's one of those deals where it's just like there's things like Y Combinator that are out there that aren't quite the norm in terms of investing. Bezos, invests, and he's not the norm. Your question is how to find someone to give a little bit of money without pressure to IPO and do 1,000% growth. Well, number one, like I feel like Y Combinator was like that back in the day. And there's other programs now with Y Combinator. I've kind of lost track of all the things that Y Combinator is doing, but I know Y Combinator was doing like some kind of like early founders program where they were going to try to give a little bit of money to things. I know my friend Daniel Zarek did it, and it was like one of these kind of like remote programs. I don't think they do that again. But there's Y Combinators that want to pay attention to. The Techstars are something to pay attention to. It's not easy. So how to find someone to give a little bit of money? Find a customer. Like there are plenty of people who, if you're going to solve a problem, it's easy to cold email a bunch of people and be like, look, I've got the solution, and I just need to talk to you and get some feedback. And in the course of that conversation, in the course of that relationship, maybe it's not a sales pitch immediately on that first thing, but they give you feedback, you give them a product, you fine tune it with them. And in the course of that relationship, you ask like, okay, we've got a solution to your problem. How much are you willing to pay me? And it happens every day. People call up a potential customer and close them on a deal. So if you're going to deal with trying to do that with investors, it's an easier pitch to potential customers. Investors, I've been on both sides trying to talk to potential customers and talk to potential investors. Potential customers know what they're talking about. Potential customers often know what they want. They know what their problem is. Once you show them a solution, they can give you feedback whether or not it's a good idea or a bad idea. Investors often don't know what they're talking about. They don't know the market. If they say they know the market, most of them are lying. They're just guessing. Most of them are passing on really great deals anyway. So it's like, I wouldn't, if you're gonna try to look for someone to give you money, start with just a ton of customers. Go that route. Anyway. All right. All right. That's it. I'm done ranting on this. I'm sure I have a lot more. This is a deep topic. But I'm happy to, again, talk more about this. If you got some specific questions, email me. I'm just at nate.cotney@gmail.com. Hit me up on Twitter. I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Yeah, there is no substitute for revenue, Jim Gray says. Exactly. Just focus on revenue at first before you start thinking about funding. Funding doesn't have to be this thing you eradicate out of your mind. Just focus on getting some customer money. All right, enjoy it. Thanks, guys, and have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you so much for tuning in on a Saturday night watching this thing. Good luck in your businesses. Again, if I can be of any assistance, please email away. Your questions that you email, I don't have to talk about them on this vlog. I'm still happy to help. You know, if there's something you want me to cover, I'm happy to do that too on the vlog. If there's something you want me to keep anonymous, I'm happy to do that too. Whatever I can do to help. If you just need some feedback, please just ping away. It's all good. And you guys have an awesome rest of the weekend. Hit the thumbs up, please. If you're on Twitter, please keep sharing these links. I love growing this channel. I keep growing this incrementally, but this channel keeps growing, and I love doing it. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye, everybody. If I can figure out how now to turn off my live event. There we go.